Tim, Diddy invited me to his birthday party, but he took me to a separate room where there were all young boys. Diddy forced me to sacrifice them. He also forced me to beat Cassie.
And whether it's the money, the promises, or whatever, it gets him.
Tim, Diddy invited me to his birthday party, but he took me to a separate room where there were all young boys. Did he force me to sacrifice them? He also forced me to beat Cassie. And whether it's the money, the promises, or whatever, it gets you. How you feel about these rumors surrounding, Diddy and TD Jake? Man, what I think about it is this. When I grew up in the church, the sinners was not supposed to have the same atmosphere with the saints. You had to be able to separate the two. So I'm looking at him as a saint going to a party that ain't nothing but sin, drinking, maybe fornication, man on man, woman on woman, she would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? That dude was possessed with some kind of demon, man. He was possessed with some kind of demon. Want to be in this dark rooms with the music blasting. It had to be a certain temperature. A certain type of music for the 6 vibration they saying. Come on, bro. People pay attention when Gene Deal speaks. Why? Because he lived in the shadow of the most powerful empire in hip-hop. Gene was more than just a background figure as Puff Daddy's former bodyguard. He was in the midst of it all. The gatherings, the talks in the back room, the celebrations. He saw everything. He is now revealing something that no one anticipated, which is the true reason Bishop T.D. Jakes resigned as pastor. Jake's departure seemed honorable, dignified, and maybe even clean to the general public. However, Gene is presenting a messier, darker picture. He said that this decision was connected to something more profound, something involving Diddy rather than simply a man of God thinking it was time to take a break. Let's face it, Diddy and Jake were close, not just friends. The two often appeared together throughout the years, openly defending one another and developing a relationship that sparked curiosity in the entertainment and religious communities. However, what transpired behind the scenes was not discussed until now. Gene suggests that their bond went beyond Sunday lectures and spiritual counseling. No, he implies that there were background activities that were unable to remain unnoticed indefinitely. And here's the thing, Gone Deal has decades of experience and isn't simply making outrageous statements to get influence. He's been holding receipts from the East Coast that rip West Coast turmoil to the most sinister facets of celebrity society. And this time he's making connections between things that many people don't want to. In addition to his strength, Diddy was calculating, charismatic, and threatening in all the right ways. He was the kind of guy who could make everyone feel fortunate to be in his presence. But there was always something strange, something sinister underneath the expensive clothing and ostentatious charm. People were drawn to him for many reasons. Some remained out of fear. While some were purchased with cash, others were enticed with glitzy promises, a record contract, a feature, or a place at the table. Did his dirt, his power, and the fact that refusing him meant losing everything. Additionally, in regard to T.D. Jake was really committed and not simply there for the companionship or religion. Maybe there to save some souls. I know he got a contract with Revolt. So, I'm just like it's just real strange that he would be found at any kind of Diddy party or any kind of place with Diddy unless it's in a business atmosphere. So now what he's doing is he's making making the Christians look real bad right about now. And you've been to these parties, right? Oh yeah. I was there when he was doing the white parties in the Hamptons and the whole 9 yards. So I know what goes on at the parties. If they probably got a little bit more freakier, as time went on, 'cause they got to the point whereas that they didn't even care. Furthermore, Jake embraced it rather than only accepting it. He certainly didn't think twice about joining groups where morality and salvation weren't valued, considering that he spoke on these topics every Sunday. This was alignment, not only friendship. An innocent guy inched in a controversy was not Jake's. He was a guy who would stop at nothing to get a piece of what Diddy had. And he did just that if it meant ignoring what transpired at those events and keeping silent when things began to become nasty. In the end, Diddy gave him everything. Cash, recognition, and a chance to be relevant in society outside of the church. And Jake returned the favor, his name, his presence, and his quiet. You can't claim you didn't feel the heat when standing so near to the fire. TD Jake was well aware of his actions. Gene Deal wasn't holding back. Most people were too afraid to even murmur what he stated, yet he did it. It used to be secretly, where people used to go to, separate rooms and different rooms, and they wasn't doing that out in the public, But now they don't care. Men kissing men and all this other, it's crazy. In his explosive revelations, Gene called out TD Jake by name, accusing the mega-archbishop of being right there in the middle of it all. Not as a bystander, not as some confused guest, but as an active part of the twisted, disturbing world Diddy built behind closed doors. According to Gon, the things that happened at those parties weren't just wild. They were evil. We're talking about events that went way beyond celebrity indulgence. There were girls, many of them vulnerable, young, and manipulated, being passed around like props. If he's going well, we know he's going to the Diddy parties. And I know that I know what usually happens at the Diddy part or what we told happen at the Diddy parties. Maybe he need to see it for himself, man. Maybe he need to go there and really be involved in some things that could help save some individuals while they going to those parties. Or maybe he just going to man, it's hard to even talk about. Why would you find a religious man, when you know that the saints supposed to separate theirself from the sinners? And why would a religious man like himself be at a party which ain't nothing but sin that's going on, bro? Whether it's drinking, maybe fornicating, maybe like I said, men on men, women on women, it's hard to put in perspective unless he's involving himself what is actually going on at the parties. And in those same rooms, Gene says TD Jakes was present. A man who built his brand on holiness, integrity, and leadership, standing shoulder to shoulder with one of the most controversial and allegedly dangerous figures in hip-hop. Deal didn't sugarcoat anything. He made it clear. Jake knew what was happening. He saw it. He felt the energy. And he chose to stay. He chose to be a part of something that was clearly immoral and deeply damaging, especially to the women caught in the middle of it. And he was allegedly working with Puffy. To Gon, it wasn't just disappointing. It was betrayal. Betrayal of faith, betrayal of the public who trusted Jake, and most of all, betrayal of the countless victims who suffered while men with power, influence, and a pulpit stayed silent. Because if TD Jake was really the man he claimed to be, he wouldn't have been at those parties at all. But wait, then why did one of the most influential pastors in America suddenly walk away? If Gon Deal is telling the truth, the answer might have everything to do with Diddy and everything we weren't supposed to know. For those of you who have been living under a rock, TD Jake's name officially entered the legal storm surrounding Shaw Diddy Combs. The once untouchable pastor from Dallas, known around the world for his influence, charisma, and massive following at the Potter's house, was no longer just a spiritual figure watching from the sidelines. His name showed up in a federal lawsuit connected to Diddy, pulling him straight into the controversy. The legal filing didn't come from just anyone. It was brought forward by a music producer who had previously worked closely with Diddy. Do you think I'm assuming a LGBT community in the black church can coexist? Absolutely. Let me push that question cause hello. I once had Diddy text me, "Welcome to the family." But I was by a platinum-selling producer who was one of his cohorts. According to the complaint, Diddy had allegedly intended to use his relationship with Jake as a shield, a way to protect his image in the fallout following the explosive lawsuit filed by Cassie Ventura. And he needed to have someone by his side because the things he was doing to Cassie were horrendous. Man. But to get into this lawsuit, right, Cassie, she testified that Diddy will force male escorts to urinate in her mouth during Frio, my man. You know, that's a touchy and, difficult subject when you a man and you have daughters. You understand? And that's why we as men need to play a prominent part in our daughters' lives, because you get men like this that's got this corrupt and devious minds that they don't respect womanhood. You understand? That's some nasty perverted things that you want to have somebody urinate in the mouth of somebody who going to be talking to you in your face, who going to be kissing on you, who going to be, eating food with you. What kind of deviant and crazy mind you have to have somebody do that to somebody that you care about, you supposed to care about, that you supposed to love, man. You know, something is sick about that, brother. You can't tell me that that's some kind of fetish. You know what I'm saying? You know, he didn't outdid R. Kelly with that, __, right there, bro. When I heard that. So, that's a effed up subject.